Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we'll be taking a little bit of a masterclass in installing RAM sticks. Keep watching to find out more. Okay, so in today's video we'll be taking a little bit of a look at how to install RAM on your computer. Now for a lot of you out there, you're probably looking at this video and possibly looking at the title and thinking, really? What are you doing? But there are a lot of people out there that have problems, and actually myself included, I have once or twice come up on an issue where I've just failed to install RAM properly. And today's video we're going to go through some of the steps I've actually used in the past myself to try and remedy those faults, and also try and give you some best practice tips and advice. Now first of all, best practice advice would be to, if you can, make sure you're actually grounded out so you don't get any static across your components. That is generally the kind of the consensus, so you want to try and do that if possible. In this particular video I won't be wearing a wrist strap, so please don't flame me in the comments for that one just yet. The next thing to do is to make sure that you've got a relatively anti-static free workspace. Now for us, we're going to be using the cardboard box that the motherboard comes in. In this particular video, obviously you can see we're using the ROG Strix B450F Gaming. Also RAM-wise, we're going to be using the XPG Spectrix. This is a DDR4 3200 kit, which I've picked up very recently. And actually this is a very good kit for explaining the reason behind this video very well. Now RAM, when it comes to DDR4, which we will be going to DDR5 soon, so I may have to remake this video, but essentially it all works in a very similar way as in terms of how it physically fits. So with the RAM, if you look at it very carefully at the bottom, you'll see there is a notch which is cut out at the bottom, and that is generally offset to one side or the other. Now previously on DDR2 and DDR3, the offset was slightly greater, so it was more obvious. So do make sure that the actual notch in the RAM actually matches up with the notch on the motherboard, which we'll take a look at a little bit closer later on. That is one of the primary things you need to look at. And also, if you do look very closely at the RAM itself, you'll notice that the actual golden fingers at the bottom, these should be clean by the way, they are a little bit longer in the middle than what they are at the outside edges. So depending on the pressure you put on your RAM sticks when actually installing it, there is actually a potential for the RAM sticks to not fully make a seated contact in both ends. So a lot of people will advise you to install your RAM and click it into position and do one end first, then the other. Now this is actually the wrong way of doing it, because when you do that, you're locking in one end slightly more, and when you go to push in the other end, it doesn't always firmly seat. So when you're installing RAM, what we're looking for is even pressure across the top of the RAM sticks, and ideally, now I do stress ideally, we want to get it so that both clip in at the same time. Now I myself have been guilty of this many times. I've generally been pretty lucky with RAM, but certain models, this one in particular, actually the fingers are quite short on the end, so you can cause problems by doing it in the corner method. So we'll be avoiding that in this particular installation. So that's enough about the intro, let's actually get on and install some RAM. So looking at the motherboard first of all, as you can see I've got this close up so you can see. So this is an ASUS board. On this particular board we've got the clamp situation, so this end there are no actual clips which move themselves. We've only got retention at the top here. As you can see, you've got these clips. So when you're installing your RAM, open up the clip just on this end. You don't need to do it on this end. As you can see, it is fixed, so there's nothing we can do there. So this actually makes it a little bit easier, and is potentially why this board actually works much better with the RAM that we're using than an MSI board, for instance, which has clips at both ends. But anyway, I digress. So if you look at the actual slot itself, you'll notice there is an indentation or a notch just slightly over halfway. So this is the notch that we want to match up with our RAM. So if we have the RAM this side, you can see the notch is now very offset. Spin the RAM around 180 degrees and hopefully you can see that the notch pretty much matches up. So that is where we want to be in terms of orientation. When it comes to installing RAM on your motherboard, then depending on how you're doing it, if you're doing a single channel setup, generally you want to be using the second slot in. If you're using a Ryzen based motherboard or most Intel boards, there may be the odd occasion where you've only got two slots, in which case generally I would try the one closest to the CPU, but normally for a 4-channel setup or dual channel split into 2 banks, then you'd go for the second one as your primary. So we'll open up the latch on there. The next thing we're going to do is actually look at our RAM and just make sure that the fingers are all physically clean. You can have a quick look down there. They are very small, so it might be a little bit tricky, but just have a look, make sure there's no actual obvious things in there like cat hair, dust, fluff, lint, that kind of stuff. If it looks slightly greasy, then you can use things like isopropyl alcohol and just give it a quick wipe off. If you don't have any alcohol, then you can use alcohol-based products. Ideally, some sort of kind of aftershave or perfume can do the trick. Not advisable, but in a pinch you can get away with it. Alternatively, you can use things like an eraser or rubber, as it's known in the United Kingdom. The sort of thing you'd use to rub out pencil markings. That can also clean up the fingers pretty well also. But generally I find that actually using alcohol or sometimes even just a liquid of some sort will help remove or break down the grease which may be on those golden fingers. Now, each one of those golden fingers actually sends a signal to another golden finger actually in the motherboard, so they do have to be clean, otherwise it can cause errors. So anyway, we've opened up our second slot, which is this one here, and I'm looking at the board with it this way round, so when you're doing your build you'll probably see it more like this. So what we want to do first of all is obviously make sure the RAM is lined up, and first of all just line it up towards the end there and slot it in very slightly. Now actually I've just noticed there is a very small hair just on there, so we'll get rid of that. So I put the RAM in. Sometimes it might be a little bit tight, so I might have to give it a little bit of pressure there. Get it so it's almost just resting on that notch area. Then what you can do is with firm pressure across the entire heat spreader is push it down in one fell swoop. That, as you can probably hear, made a terrible noise, but it has actually locked in place, and if we try and pull it out, it is fully locked into position. So that's the first of our RAM sticks fully installed. So if we want to do a double channel or dual channel setup, as is common with most processors these days to give better performance, the next channel we want to do is this very end one. So this will be slot number 4. So counting away from the processor, the first one you normally leave blank, the second one will have a RAM stick, that'll be your primary stick, then you'd have a gap, which is the third one, and then we're going to be using the fourth one, which is our final slot. So again, just check over the RAM itself, have a look at all the fingers, make sure that everything looks to be clean, and then we'll line up the RAM, both ends, get it so it's just resting on that notch area, and then firm pressure both sides, and we'll lock it into place. So that is now firmly installed. If we try and lift it a little bit, it's absolutely fine. Now what I often tend to do, just to make sure that all the fingers are making good contact, is actually just give a little bit of pressure and just give it a very slight rock whilst giving it some pressure, just to make sure it's firmly seated. You can do that on both sticks. And essentially that is pretty much it. So I'll give you a different view. So that is the kind of more traditional view that you would normally see when you're building your system. So processor, first slot, leave blank. Second slot, have something installed in it. Third slot, have that empty. And then fourth slot for our dual channel. Obviously, if you're using 4 sticks of RAM, you can go ahead and populate all 4 at first. Although, I would be tempted not to. So in terms of actually fault finding and making sure your RAM actually works, there's a few more steps that we can do to actually make life a little bit easier for ourselves. Now the first of which is to remain just the 2 sticks of RAM. This is the ideal scenario, just to get the system to post and make sure that the XMP settings work, etc, etc. You may find that the XMP settings may not dial in straight away if you're actually using 4 sticks of RAM because of the way the memory controllers work, but that's another story which we can go into at a later date. So the next thing I like to do when I'm installing some new RAM on a motherboard, most boards will be absolutely fine and will just work straight off, but quite often you'll find that they won't, and they won't boot for some reason. So what I really like to do is to remove our CMOS battery, and also if you want to, you can, if you can find it, you can reset the CMOS. Now for this particular board, we've got a little pin down in this bottom corner. This is our CMOS reset, so we can just bridge it out with a screwdriver just to clear the CMOS, or if you have easy access to it and you haven't got a graphics card in the way, then an easier thing you can do is actually just take out your CMOS battery, which is this one here, which most motherboards will have quite easily visible. So these are held in place by 2 clips here and here, and also there's a spring retention on this side. So what you can do is either with your finger, you can pull this clip back and the battery should want to pop out. You can if you want to. If you can't get to it easy, use a screwdriver or a piece of maybe a chopstick or something along those lines. Anything will do, ideally if you can, something which isn't metal or conductive, because you never know what else you might touch. But certainly use whatever you need to. So with the battery out, just take the battery out, leave it out for a few seconds. Again, you can, if you want to, you can bridge out the connector down at the bottom here. Just bridge that one out again. As you can see, I've got my screwdriver over that. Just bridging out that connector. Leave that for a few seconds, and then go ahead and put your BIOS battery back in. Now, BIOS battery fits in, clips on the first plastic clip side, and then just a little push, and it will lock into position. And there we go, that's clamped into position. So now the CMOS has been reset. So then when we try and boot up the motherboard, it'll be trying to do some memory training, which is a common thing for motherboards, where they actually try the different frequencies of the RAM, or they default to the non-XMP settings, which makes booting the system considerably easier. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to fire up this motherboard, get some other components on it, and then we'll show you some of the BIOS screens and show you how to enable XMP and dialing your memory settings. So there we go, we've got our system set up, and as you can see, we've got our 2 sticks of RAM. I've included now the power cables, etc., CPU cooler, as you can obviously tell, and just a bare setup just to see if it all works before we input it into the case. So I'm going to turn on the power supply now, and when we turn on the power supply, depending on your motherboard, you may get some visual representation of the power being there. So on this one, we've got the ROG Strix logo lit up. Again, your system may be slightly different, but what we're really going to be focusing on this particular bit is we're fortunate on this motherboard to have a diagnostic LED, which is nestled down in here somewhere. So it goes various different colors. So I think it starts off amber, then goes red, then white, then green. Green being satisfactory and the system's going to boot, that kind of thing. Your motherboard may be different. You may not have any diagnostic LEDs, in which case you're just going to be waiting on the screen to come up. If you haven't got diagnostic LEDs, what you can do, which is really useful, is get a hold of one of those BIOS speakers from many moons ago when we used to have those installed. They will give you actually a audible bleep. There are bleep codes which you can go to your manufacturer's website or just Google it and say, what does 3 bleeps mean on the BIOS, that sort of thing, and you'll get a pretty good answer. Obviously, if RAM's not seated correctly, that will throw up beeps and errors, that kind of thing, so definitely worth looking out for that. Also, what we can with this RAM, because it's RGB RAM, we can tell straight away if there's an electrical fault because the RAM won't light up. So potentially we could have one stick light up, one not, that kind of thing. So there are some tips there, just things to look out for. Obviously diagnostic LEDs are a good one, and things lighting up is another. So I'm going to jump start the board now, which involves touching the 2 prongs down the bottom here. And we can see our diagnostic LED is sprung into life there. So it started off amber, went red. It'll probably do that a couple of times as it's training the RAM to find its optimum speed. Now it may actually find the optimum speed straight out the gate. Alternatively, we may need to visit the BIOS to actually modify the settings, but we'll take a look at that anyway, so we can show you how to enable XMP on your motherboard. So currently it's on green, which is a good sign. Green means it's good to go generally, and when the LEDs have gone out, you should, in theory, have a BIOS screen, which we do now have. Now obviously, if this hasn't worked for you, what you can try doing is remove the sticks, just put them in again, or potentially, if you want to do some diagnostics, just remove one of the sticks and just boot with one in slot 2. Like we said a little bit earlier in the video. So we've been particularly fortunate. So RGB's lit up, our system's booted, and our diagnostic LEDs have gone off, and now we have a BIOS screen, which I'll aim the camera up so you can get a better look at that. So if you've got a new system and you're just installing it for the first time, then there's a very strong chance your system will just boot to the BIOS menu. If it doesn't, you can tap the delete key or whatever is appropriate for your particular setup, and then you can go into the BIOS. Normally, things like the time, the date, etc. you'll need to do. Once you've done all those kinds of things, what you want to do is head over into your overclocking settings, or possibly your XMP settings, depending on the motherboard. On ASUS boards, they generally have a thing called AI Tweaker, which we can click on up here. And this opens up our overclocking. So we've been really fortunate. The AI Overclock Tuner has automatically picked up the DOCP standard. DOCP is basically ASUS's modifier for XMP. You can use the word XMP or Extreme Memory Profile and DOCP. They are interchangeable. It's mostly down to the systems. Intel, I think, trademarked XMP, and DOCP is kind of the A&D version. So you may find that when you first boot up your system, it's just set to auto. in which case if it is, the DRAM target frequency, as you can see in this top corner here, will be set to 2666. But being that our RAM is DDR4 3600, obviously we want to get the performance out of it. And without actually going in and setting the timings, you can, if you want to, go into DRAM timing control, and then you can go ahead in there and just type in all the individual settings for your CAS latencies, etc. if for some reason your motherboard has not picked it up. Now this is where it comes in quite handy that if you buy RAM which is actually compatible with your board. Just because it does the same speeds doesn't necessarily mean it's compatible. If you're not sure, check out your motherboard's QVL or qualified vendor list and make sure that the RAM you've actually bought is on that list. If it is, then it's pretty much guaranteed to pick it up straight away. If not, you may have to play with settings in order to get it to run at its optimum frequencies. But anyway, you can put your individual settings in there, clock speeds, etc., all that stuff. So that is an option, but we don't want to do that because that's a little bit time consuming. So what you'd want to do is go into where it says Auto and change it to DOCP Standard, at which point then it may give you some options. So if you click on the DOCP button, you've got two options now. Both of our options are very similar. So we've got the first one, which is DDR4 3200 1620 2038, which I believe these sticks are actually rated to. It does give us an option there for the version 2, which is going to give us slightly tighter timings. So that's going to give us 16, 18, 18, 36. Now the way to find out if your particular RAM supports a certain frequency or not is literally just look at the RAM, and on the actual stick itself or on the box there should be a label printed, which will look something like the label on here. If you read the label, it'll tell you exactly what it is. Now this particular set of RAM is 16, 20, 20, 38. So we're just going to choose the top one for safety's sake. Now you can also choose other settings here if you want. If you've got an older system or an older processor which doesn't support the newer modern speeds, you can set your DOCP, but then go down to memory frequency and just reduce it a little bit. So potentially you can choose a slower speed. So if this was DDR4 4000 for instance, because the processor we're using on here is a Ryzen 7 1700X, then that won't support that faster speed straight out of the gate. It's unlikely it will do at all. So we could go in and choose a slower speed. So if we're having issues, we could try 2666, then work our way up through the actual memory timings. But for this, the DDR4 3200 is going to be absolutely fine for our processor. But just a heads up there, so if you potentially have got super fast RAM, but you have got a slightly older processor or slightly older motherboard, maybe you're running B450 rather than B550 or X570, there are limitations on what RAM will support. So these are the settings you will need to look at to actually configure your system. So anyway, that is all we really need to do in here. What we can do then is click on Exit, and then we can do Save Changes and Reset, and then we should be ready to install Windows. So there we go. We've got our system up and running, and now we can go ahead and do some tweaking with the memory if we want to, or just get on and install Windows and enjoy our PC. So hopefully this video's been interesting for you and informative. If it has, don't forget to slap a big fat like on it. And if you want to see more content like this, then obviously make sure you do what it says back there. So like, share and subscribe, and you'll get more content like this in your inbox. One thing I will mention is, obviously, if you've watched this video and you're about to type away in the comments, that's great, fantastic. But if you want detailed and specific response to a problem, say for instance your system's not booting or you're looking to get the best settings, obviously in the comment section is not the best place for it. Those are for simple answers or comments or recommendations. If you do want in-depth technical support with your problem, maybe it's a new build, maybe it's upgraded, maybe it's overclocking, then please, please, please don't put it in the comment section below. Do put it in our Discord chat, which is free to join. You can go on there, ask your questions, and there's a whole group of people who'll be happy to at least try and answer your questions. So anyway, I've whittled on for way too long, as I generally tend to. Let's wrap this one up. I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video or on the Discord. Thanks for watching.